Most people think the will is that, but really the will has to be validated by the court. That's like the point of the probate process, is the court to say, yes, this is a valid will, and yes, you, Mr. Johnny, are in charge of the estate.
We're able to work with families, not have them come out of pocket at all. We cover all the filing fees, we cover all the labor to make sure that it's done right and that the families are going to be supported so that they get the money as quick as possible with as least stress, and that the family knows that this is getting done right. Because a lot of the fighting in probate just comes from either lack of communication or lack of trust that it's being handled properly. And so a lot of times probate without attorney guidance can take 6 months to a year before you're even really getting everything where it should be. With an attorney, we usually get that done as a target of 30 to 45 days right off the hit. And us being able to guide families through that makes it so much easier. It's very different than what I do in the other side of my area, which is the pre-planning, but it's really helping people still. And so over the years, I've fallen in love with it. We do on average right now about 600 probate cases a year and have a team of almost 10 people to do that. And so it's really grown over time and been something where, the way that I judge success is like how many families are giving you a hug at the end of the process. And I know that sounds weird to think about, like you just lost your mom or your dad or your husband. Like, are you going to be hugging somebody after this? And the difference is if you do it right, if you're really customer service focused, they do. I can't bring back your loved one, but I can make sure that you're not feel like the gift they're giving you or the legacy they're leaving is a burden.
Well, and you guys are dealing with, and I had, a buddy of mine on my podcast, and he went through probate with his dad. And people, like, not only are you dealing with the death, but then, like, there's a whole bunch of other crap you have to deal with. So a lot of these people, like, already right off the bat are overwhelmed, right, with everything going on, with the emotions, with the grief, with all that. So you guys have to deal with that and the legal piece and deal with the fact that, oh, by the way, you're dealing with the government on the other side with the court system, right? Which is slow as molasses. So
every county can be different. Every state can be different. I think what you're doing with this 50-state approach is really, really cool, because even what we talk about today with Georgia might be different in a different state. So a lot of people, especially whenever we lose a parent, the biggest thing that they're realizing is that sometimes our parents just didn't have everything in place. Maybe they misunderstood something, or maybe times just changed. If your parents dealt with your grandparents' estate, it might have still been handshake deals, especially here in Georgia. The courts used to be very much like, oh, we'll just help you push that through. And then after the mid-2000s, we started to see a lot of tightening up for that, where it wasn't just, oh, I know you, I knew your mama, I knew your granddaddy. Now they're like, no, like, prove it. And that's a real change. And so if your parents did your grandparents' estate and all they had to do was walk down to the courthouse and shake a couple hands and then walk into the bank and they got money, they didn't really plan because they didn't think they had to. And then all of a sudden, you're the first generation that's really finding out that as things have evolved, the law hasn't necessarily changed, but it's being applied differently. You can't just walk into the bank, even with a will in your hand, and say, hey, my dad passed, I'm the only heir, can I get my check? They're going to say no. And you're like, I'm confused, I don't understand.
Right, because most people think the will is that, but really the will has to be validated by the court. That's like the point of the probate process, is the court to say, yes, this is a valid will, and yes, you, Mr. Johnny, are in charge of the estate.
And I think the big part that people even miss is probate isn't even designed to just validate the will. It's a protection for creditors. Right. So it's to make sure things like Capital One credit cards or Northside Hospital get paid what they're due. Because even if I have $100,000 and I say all of it goes to my daughter, if I owe Capital One 10 grand, she only gets 90 because I got to pay them first. And that's one of the big things that people forget about.